Bible this morning, in order to appropriately understand my perspective on this, I think you need to understand a little bit about my childhood. So little Natalie is the youngest child, all right, as the baby of the family. And of course, I was an absolute angel. I never did anything wrong whatsoever. If you know my youngest, we're the same. So clearly I was perfect all the time. Okay? But because I was the youngest, I never won the battle for the remote, right? Never, not once. So I was often watching things that I probably should not have been watching. Okay? And if you're worried, don't worry too much. I did have the good 90s Christian parents. And so MTV was never on in our house. The Simpsons were the devil, and they made sure we knew it, okay? Surprisingly, we were okay with Harry Potter, and we watched a lot of Hocus Pocus, all right? But Hunchback of Notre Dame is crossing the line, okay? 1,000% not allowed, never watching that one. So, if you're wondering what family movie nights were like, they were so wholesome. Okay, we'd get together in 90s, right? So we would squish into our hunter green plaid couches and fight over who got to sit in the lazy boy. And we'd have like a bucket of popcorn that we stole from the movie theater and a mountain of Little Debbies. Okay, that was our family movie night. And then we'd sit down and we're ready and we hit play on Braveheart. Or Die Hard, or The Bone Collector. That one I didn't watch. I hid behind the couch. If you're wondering how old I was when we watched these movies, they all came out before I turned 10, and I watched them all upon release. Okay, this is my childhood. This is how we go. I have a distinct memory of seeing Lethal Weapon 4, which is rated R, in the theaters, and I was 8 years old when that movie came out. So, I spent my childhood consuming war stories and action movies and watching way too many things that I shouldn't have. But I did fall in love with something that I still love today, and that's the hero's journey, right? Like a lot of these movies stand the test of time because we see people we get inspired, right? We want to fight for what is right. We want to never get up. We want to succeed against all odds and push forward no matter what it costs us, right? That's what these movies teach us. And so we have a culture that celebrates the William Wallaces. Eric would not let me use the name William. I tried real hard. The John McClanes, the Detective Riggs, and if you don't know any of those characters, we can chat after service, and I can let you know. But we see these people, they're making a difference in a world that is desperate for difference makers. So we fall in love with this, and when I was studying for this message, I came across this quote. There's a really good, I brought it, but it's in the kitchen, so if you want to see it, let me know after service. But the Alabaster Co., they did a study on the fruits of the Spirit, and I love this quote. It says, "From an early age, we like to imagine ourselves in the middle of that heroic narrative." Anyone ever become the hero in your playtime, right? Yeah. And as we move through life, we often observe the rise of people who use domination and force to garner success, which is tempting to emulate. But strength is not a spiritual fruit. Many would rather magnify the zeal of a God that overturns tables than the gentle hand that pulls broken people out of the dirt. We grow up being taught to be strong and powerful and courageous and ambitious. Our modern day culture is full of praise for passionate warriors. We live in a country that has one of the largest military forces in the world, and currently we're choosing to wield it to intimidate, control, manipulate in search of greatness. This is what we're surrounded by. We've been trained to believe that power is a sword or a loud voice or a win at all costs. The Bible gives us a great story of a hero complex, and it's one of Jesus' disciples. And today I'm going to call him Passionate Peter. Passionate Peter, because we see his passion on full display over and over and over in the Bible. But unfortunately, especially early in his journey, what Peter lacks is tact. And this story comes from the hours right before Jesus' death, and we find Jesus and his disciples in the garden. Maybe a cue that the garden is important if that's where he is right before he dies. But we find them in the garden, and a mob of accusers is approaching, right? Like, I don't think the Bible gives us a specific number, but it uses the word mob. It uses, I picture, torches and pitchforks and angry villagers, is like the image that comes into my head. And the disciples, they surround Jesus and they draw their swords, which, to be fair, genuine reaction to a mob approaching you. And Mark has an account of the next events, and he tells us this. Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested them. But one of the men, which we know was Peter, with Jesus, pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his ear. Jesus asked them, "Am I some dangerous revolutionary that you come with swords and clubs to arrest me?" Peter does the thing that we all want to do, right? A mob is coming at you. You have a sword in your hand. You're angry. When our back is against the wall and danger is approaching, we want to come out swinging. Passionate Peter becomes the action hero of this moment, right? In our movies, he would be celebrated. He would be applauded, and probably people would join him in with him right away. The hero, just at the right time, weapon in hand, swings and cuts off an ear. This is the culture we're surrounded by. We live in a world of sword wielders. When someone attacks our faith or our values, or dare I say, just our comfort, our instinct is to swing. In a digital world, we cut people with our, well, actually, or ratioing their post, or better yet, let's just go ahead and get them canceled. Or, I don't even know them, but someone I know canceled them, so I'm going to jump on this bandwagon and let's keep it going. It becomes really easy to rally behind this type of passion. It's contagious. And if you get someone who's really good with words, it's easy to jump on and believe everything they said without ever checking it for ourselves. But as Christians, we have a very specific call to be in the world and not of it. We are called to be countercultural. So let's take a look at what Jesus' response is here, so we can better follow his lead. Peter swings, cuts off an ear, but Jesus' response is, no more. That's all he says, no more. And then he calmly and gently places his hands on the bleeding ear and heals it. See, we think we are spending our time defending Jesus while Jesus is busy healing the wounds we caused with our attack. He's busy doing the gentle work of God with humility, with service, with care. Well, church, followers of Jesus, I have a very important question for you today. Do you want to be a sword wielder or a wound healer? Both of these have a tendency to break through the noise. You can break through either way, right? You can get noticed either way, but only one carries the Spirit of Jesus. Both of these are passionate, but only one lives in peace. Right now, today, it's time for just a little bit of self-assessment. No wrong answers. Thinking to yourselves, which one are you? A sword wielder or a wound healer? Does that follow you through your different environments? In your marriage, in your workplace, in your politics, in your family, when you're sitting at your keyboard or scrolling through your phone? Who are you? Are you a sword wielder focused on winning, being right, showing strength? Or are you a wound healer reflecting the gentle heart of Jesus, bringing restoration and healing? As his story continues, we see passionate Peter soften from a sword wielder to a wound healer. And you know what? He is no less passionate. He is no less a hero. The same man who cut off someone's ear in Jesus' defense, very soon after, denies that he ever knew Jesus. It's at this fork in the road that we see Peter decide to harness his passion differently. This is a moment for him, a life-changing moment where he starts to leave behind physical and emotional violence and shift towards a more gentle life of healing, reaching and preaching. Over the years, in many circumstances, we see Peter's rough edges begin to smooth out. He has a rock bottom moment, but he becomes the rock on which Jesus' church is built. The softer version of Peter, still passionate Peter, we see him encounter a handicapped and homeless man who everyone else has written off. He's like the crazy guy on the street corner, right? That's how people walk by him and ignore. And this man, he screams to get Peter's attention, and where Peter used to swing, instead he says this. The lame man looked at them eagerly, expecting some money. But Peter said, I don't have any silver or gold for you, but I will give you what I have. In the name of Jesus Christ, the Nazarene, get up and walk. Then Peter took the lame man by the right hand and helped him up. And as he did, the man's feet and ankles instantly healed and strengthened. He jumped up, stood on his feet, and began to walk. And then, walking and leaping and praising God, he went in to the temple with them. Peter has put down his sword. He's embraced his life as a wound healer. These are words from a man who is reflecting the quiet and gentle spirit. He has learned that is the loudest testimony in a noisy world. To be a follower of Jesus, we're required to choose the call of wound healer. And I know it's been a while since I've preached, but I'm going to have the same little catchphrase, but how? In a world obsessed with swinging swords, how does someone begin to heal wounds? How do we become the Spirit-led people we're challenged to be in Galatians 5, where we see the fruits of the Spirit? And I believe that there's one fruit that really lends to this. It's gentleness. It's kind of at the end of the list there, and I think that's on purpose. We all know someone, right, who has no gentle bone in their body, right? Think about this person for a minute, or maybe it's like a few different people, and what other traits do you see in this? I think it's things like pride, driven by ego, quick to anger. Ambition is like a really high, success is a high factor, winning. They're often callous, hard-hearted. Unfortunately, these are often the people we also see getting ahead in life. To be gentle, to be seen or known this way feels very vulnerable. And a lot of people would see it as a weakness. They'd see a pushover, someone I can take advantage of. And potentially this is true, depending on the scenario. But maybe it's because you just don't care about the same things. What if the thing taken by those who wield the sword can be recovered with a healed wound? When we realize that, things matter less. When we realize that healing is possible and how completely that can happen, we worry less. We don't need to control it all. We don't need to keep everything within our arms. We don't need to be the strongest. Is anyone in here wounded? Have circumstances cut you? Did someone swing at you? Has life just taken a toll? The good news is the Word of God says that we can take back power from the violent people of this world by letting Jesus heal them and heal us. What the world perceives as a weakness is a sign of living like Jesus. I found this quote from Anne Frank years after her time hiding from Nazi soldiers, and it challenges my understanding of strength and weakness. She says, "In the long run, the sharpest weapon of all is a kind and gentle spirit." In reality, it requires significantly more strength to remain gentle than to swing a sword. Anyone who has ever battled a toddler understands that. Try to get them to put their shoes on. Try to get them out the door on time. Try to convince your pastor's kid that it's church day and you can't stay home alone because you're 4. Okay? So force, the world sees it as a sign of strength. But the reality is force is weakness, right? Force is I can't control this situation in any other way, so I have to be the hammer. Gentleness is immense power. So let's talk about fruit as we do. And I'm not as cool as Pastor Aeric, so I don't have a peach here with me today. But, you know, the peach is our example of what a gentle person looks like. And if you can picture it, you've got this lovely picture up here, but imagine that we have one. It's like a medium-sized fruit, right? You can hold it in your hand. And it's got this nice fuzz on the outside, right? You can make it soft. And some fruits, like, you know, pineapple, they've got this defense mechanism. It's like a hedgehog with the quills. Their backs are up. But a peach doesn't have anything like this, and it's not cold and hard when you hold it like an apple might be. Peaches are soft. They're inviting. And this is the kind of approachability and availability we as Christians are supposed to have. Paul writes this in Philippians, "Let your gentle spirit," and this is amplified so it expands what a gentle spirit means, "your graciousness, unselfishness, mercy, tolerance, and patience be known to all people. The Lord is near." Did anyone else read that list and say, so I don't just have to be gentle, but I have to figure out how to do all these other hard things? Oh. The world says that strength is like a tank. The Spirit says it's like a peach. Gentle, soft, and approachable. At times, we might start swinging the sword and not even realize it. I've been there. But we can always come back to gentleness by drawing near to God and letting His Spirit shine through. You know, specifically, I don't have this up on the screen, but we talk often about Pastor John Mark Comer, and he has a thought on gentleness that the only way it can be cultivated is when you get comfortable with the practices of silence and solitude. Eric said, ugh, if you didn't hear him, ugh. Because when you sit in silence, and nothing else happens, by yourself. When was the last time you sat by yourself in a quiet room with no device, no noise, and you just were? Some of you are really good at that. Some of us are really uncomfortable with it. When we did this practice in practicing the way, it was at the beginning of it was, I thought fasting, everyone was going to be like, I don't want to do that. No. Solitude. Everyone was like, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. But it's that space that allows us to cultivate gentleness, to slow down, to understand what actually matters. We allow, that is creating space for God. In the silence, in the solitude, when we let everything else quiet. We have to learn how our words can be gentle so that we can allow others to heal from judgment. Our actions have to be in sync with God so that they reflect Him, not the world. Rich Philotas, he describes gentleness as the ability to be a calm presence in a fractured world. Says this, a calm presence or a non-anxious presence is a life no longer fueled by reactivity. It's the act of remaining curious before God, curious before my neighbor, and curious and calm with myself in times of high anxiety. A calm presence requires the introspective act of identifying our own behavior. You see, when we are rushing through life, when we wake up chaotic, when we wake up stressed, we remove our ability to be this calm presence, or it takes a heck of a lot longer to get there, right? I hear stories about these mothers who wake up before their children. I don't know who they are. Certainly not me. And they say, I need to have time for the quiet and calm so that however my children wake up, I'm ready for it and I can remain quiet and calm. I would like them to teach me their ways. But it's that kind of spirit. Have you allowed quiet and calm to fuel your day? Do you build any space for it? If not, and I'd wager to say that's most of us in this room, even just judging by some of the faces I'm getting, chances are you might have some hard edges. Might get a little irritable from time to time, right? Might battle a little harder than you need to sometimes, or pick a fight that you realize halfway through, I don't even know if I care about this that much. Ever been there? Do you have those hard edges, rough spikes, thorns on a hard-shelled personality? Here's the real test. Am I a gentle person or not? Do people avoid you? Do people get nervous when you walk in the room or bring up a certain topic? Does your presence cause anxiety for anybody? I have news. If you answered yes to any of those, you're probably not a gentle person. But I'll be honest with you. When I told Balin I was preaching on gentleness, he laughed at me. And he said, my little neurodivergent friend said, should I preach on focus next? That's what he said to me this morning. It was great. It was great. So I'm right there with you in the trenches. Okay? And there's a tendency we have to try to pendulum swing right here. And like Pastor Eric talked about last week, being a gentle person does not mean that we should avoid necessary confrontation so that we appear gentle, or like he talked about, we're nice, but we're not kind. We can be kind and gentle in our delivery even when we need to say something hard. Here's a distinction I think we need to all kind of wrestle with. You can be strong without being Spirit-led. You cannot be gentle without being Spirit-led. I don't think we were built that way, and we certainly weren't raised that way, even if you only watched age-appropriate movies growing up. The Bible has another word for this way of living, this gentleness. It's meekness. Have you ever heard that word? It's not one that we use very often today. And in fact, some of it is because we don't really have good translation for these words. But it's viewed as weak and fragile, so it kind of phased out. But if you really pay attention to what's happening in the Bible, you would see that meek is not weak. Meek is not weak. Meek is a humble spirit that avoids harshness and force. It's a gentle approach to truth, or a handle with care kind of method, showing compassion even if we need to correct others. Meekness makes you approachable. It makes people desire to be around you. It heals wounds on people who are surrounded by sword wielders. We can handle with care because we're no longer protecting our own ego. A gentle spirit doesn't kill your personality. I think that's some of the fear, right? It matures it. Passionate Peter is still very, very passionate when he undergoes this transformation. Paul chooses the word gentleness in this list of the fruits of the Spirit because of its connection to the Greek word for meekness. But this is where some of the translation gets really difficult because it's actually better translated. We don't have a one-to-one word for gentleness from the Greek word, but it's better translated to strength in restraint. Strength in restraint. And I have a thought. If that doesn't quite make sense to you, I'm a horse girl, right? Have you ever been around a horse? Yeah. Have you ever stood next to one? It's this giant animal, powerhouse. We had one growing up. He was 17 hands, which I looked up meant that at his shoulders, he was about 5'8". So when I encountered this horse, his name was Gray Goose, because, great. He was named when we bought him. My 12-year-old sister rode around Gray Goose all the time. Had no idea that was an alcohol. Whatever, But he was giant. And just this I was smaller than Balin. I don't know. I was this big looking up at this giant horse. And the second my sister would put on his halter, I was terrified of him. I rode the pony that could only carry 100 pounds, right? She would put on his halter and put the bridle in his mouth, and immediately all of that power was restrained. This teeny tiny 12-year-old girl could hop on his back and guide and harness every bit of that. It's what restraint looks like. That horse was not any less strong or powerful. Had he really wanted to, he could have done whatever he wanted. but he chose restraint and guidance. Just restraining requires an obscene amount of strength. Restraint harnesses strength and paves the way to a power that heals, a power that restores, a power that can only come from God. So let's look back at our peach for a moment. We talked about the outside, right? But once you get past that skin, what happens? There's this like soft squishiness. It's a vulnerability that we talked about. There's a tender interior. But that's not all that's there, right? Because in the very center of the peach is a hard, unshakable core. And it's this that represents the core conviction of a gentle-spirited person. I don't know if you've ever tried to like crack a peach pit. It's not going to go very well for you. Like if you have some tools maybe, but your hands are not going to do it. This pit is solid. Gentleness isn't an absence of backbone like the world tends to perceive it. It's actually having a backbone so strong that you can afford to have a front that's soft. And just like a peach, though, if you were to remove that core, you're going to rot from the inside out. We have to make God our core. This is what we mean when we talk about creating space for God in our head, our heart, and our home. What's at your core? Worship team, you can go ahead and come forward. You see, every single one of us was born soft and vulnerable. We are wrapped in a gentleness. If you haven't, take a peek at baby Callie, barely, teeny tiny on your way out, and see that like the gentleness, she's vulnerable, we're meek. And somewhere along the way, we convince ourselves, or we let the world teach us that we have to grow this thick skin, that we have to toughen up, gotta be ready for battle. But when the world feels heavy, Jesus gives us a very specific direction. In Matthew 11:28 through 30, one of my favorite verses because I find so much comfort in it. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart." This is one of the only times in the Bible where we see Jesus self-describe his heart. And let's look at the words he chooses there. I am humble and gentle. And we are to reflect him. And you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. There's some Bible language there. I think sometimes we get caught in it. What Jesus means is what feels heavy to you, you can hand to me and it will no longer feel heavy. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to take it away. It means I will make it light. Is anyone in here today weary? Are you carrying heavy burdens? Does the chaos and violence of the world feel like too much? Just a review, no opinions in here, but if I could just state some of the things that we are encountering. We are dropping bombs. We have soldiers that lived a few miles away from us who are no longer alive. Just a few states away, ordinary, everyday people have been shot and killed by government agents while trying to protect their neighbors, or simply drive down the street. Here in our town, there are people who are too scared to go to work get groceries, or send their kids to school because they might be arrested and end up in a literal death camp. Or who knows where. We can't even drive down the street in Omaha without worrying that the road will fall out from underneath us. In this very room, we've lost jobs. We've lost people that we love. We have fought to keep families together. We have fought to create family in the first place. We have fought to set boundaries when family became foe. Are you tired of fighting? The world, unfortunately, has become an unhappy, unhealthy, unsafe, terrifying place. Do you feel heavy? Are you exhausted? Are you stressed? Irritable to those around you? Quick to snap? Leading with anger? Do you always need to be right? Always need to be the one to win? Does that feel good? How heavy does that sword feel in your hand? But Jesus says, I'll make it light. Bring it to me, and I will make it light. Jesus says, no more. And in one of his most important messages, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, blessed are the gentle and meek, for they will inherit the earth. Not the warriors, not the kings, not the billionaires, the gentle and meek. The world thinks that you can take what you want by force and get into power, but God has already gifted the entire world to the gentle. In the upside down, counter-cultural kingdom of God, if you want to be the winner, if you want to live free, if you want to live on top of the world, it is time to figure out how to get humble, how to soften your heart, and how to lead with gentleness. Because to be gentle is to be free and light. Let's go ahead and stand up together. I'm going to leave you with one more question before we start to worship today. I've already asked it, but as you reflect, do you want to be a sword wielder or a wound healer?